Gridiron Rant. Join us now is the QB1, I guess we could call him that. But Kenny, I wanted just to bring you back right now.
Sure.
Because not only did we and Brez play together, me and Brez have known each other since I was probably like 10, 12 years old.
Did you guys play in Corcoran together? I know you went to the same school, but didn't play in the same years.
Brez was a couple years in front of me.
Okay.
Basically, so this is kind of how it went down. Brez and those guys won the 92 title, Section 3? 91. Yeah. So these guys were all way before, the better team came around.
Here we go. Here we go.
We're not going to start that again. There's many
we're not. No,
screens about that.
Oh my God. But yeah, back in the 90, 91, Brez used to pick up I think Mono was your center, maybe.
Mono,
his girlfriend
guard.
lived next door to me and guard, and they would come and and Brez knows my sister and everything like that, and then know his family. But so that's taking him back. That's how long? About 30 years there, pal.
Yeah.
30 years.
Is that all?
That's wild,
That's
right?
awesome.
Yeah. And just 30 years.
A few decades.
But for those that don't know, Brez not only played at New Hampshire, right? Got some time in there. New England Patriots got some time in camp there. Played for the Tampa Bay Storm, if I'm not mistaken on that. Played for the Syracuse Storm as well in semi-pro way back. I think we played one game together on that team. It was like an all-star team. But probably a game we shouldn't have lost. But when you have 30 guys that never played together all of a sudden coming to play together, it doesn't usually go very well, right?
Yeah, playoff game with one practice against I think it was the Central PA Piranha or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Oh my God! And then having an opportunity to play with Brez through the Express years and national title and all those good things, and then the first year with the Shock. So welcome.
So wait a
minute.
There's
There's your intro.
Real quick. So this is 2 weeks in a row that I'm the odd man out. You two have national titles. You two last week had that. I'm such a loser.
Who was on last week?
One of my coaching mentors. He's from Colorado. His name's David Wolf Parker. He won 2 nationals with a team out there. So yeah.
And we probably should have won more than one national championship. Let's be totally honest, but we couldn't pull it together after the first one.
Well, when you got 8 guys show up the one day you have practice before playoff games and stuff, that's that's semi-pro life right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brez, take us back, man. Take us back to what got you into football, and we'll go from there, man.
I have a very distinct memory that of what brought me into playing football. I always watched football. I grew up on the south side, McAllister Ave, which for those who don't know, where Brighton and Salina are. I was 2 blocks north of there by Duncan Bright and that whole area. So I grew up there.
In Syracuse.
I can remember being about 7 or 8 years old, and all the bigger kids would be playing football on the street, pole to pole, 2-hand touch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching there. I just watched these guys run up and down and play football. And one day the ball came over to me. I picked it up and I threw it back to the guy. And the kid goes, "Hey, you got a pretty good arm. You should play quarterback." And it was like a light bulb went off. And I said, you know what? I should play quarterback. So basically that's how I decided to be a quarterback. And everything I did after that, kind of revolved around that. It just happened to help that I was, always tall, always had a pretty strong arm, and always put in the work to try to make myself a better player.
How did you so where did you start at? Was it Kirk Park or did you start at Sherman?
No, Sherman Park. So I played Sherman Park. It's funny, my backfield, I played there 3 years, played junior peewees, did not play quarterback. First time I'd ever played tackle football. Our first scrimmage was against, I think, New Rochelle, and they kicked the shit out of us. And I had just pulling out of the center all the time, whatever. So they made me a tackle, and it was a tight end and defensive end. So the second year, kind of get a little more balls, play quarterback. I had Andre Pam as one of my running backs. He played at University of Maine and had a little cup of coffee in the league like I did. Theron Chavis, who was another Corcoran alum, incredible athlete, and Craig Adams, who was a top flight basketball player at Janesville DeWitt. So we had an amazing backfield, went on undefeated, killed everybody that year, won in the Dome. That was at the Pee Wee level. I happened to grow like 3 inches over the next year and put on like 25 pounds and couldn't play junior midgets. So I went and played midgets. They made me a tackle and defensive tackle. So prior to getting to Corcoran, I was a big ugly in the trenches, just like my boy Hank there.
Yeah.
That's what you get for getting a growth spurt earlier than everybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. But so take it on to Corcoran, man. I know, obviously, I know the times at Corcoran, but give everybody kind of the rundown. And it's funny, we will always bullshit about which team was better, who, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But the realistic is that the guys that came out of that school are just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to say, just before you guys hit the wire, I played against Corcoran. It's actually the last game I played as a senior, and we actually won that game. Good news for us was Deion Alexander was injured. So we had a little ace in the hole there. Poor guy pulled a hammy, tried to play.
And you were in Fulton, right?
Yes, sir. I graduated 90, so my last season would have been fall of 89.
Yeah. So I was on JV then. I should have been on varsity that year, but for whatever reason they wanted to hold me back. We went undefeated on the JV squad. But so I get to Corcoran and I want to be a quarterback, and everybody's telling me, no, you're not the quarterback that we have here. It's usually somebody that's more athletic, somebody that's faster, runs option, runs this and runs that. We get to the first scrimmage against Fowler, and the offense is doing nothing. This is on the freshman team. They throw me in there second quarter. I go out there, I run a couple of people over, throw a couple of passes that we complete. We go on the field, we score, and all of a sudden, Bresnahan's a quarterback on freshman for the rest of the year. We go undefeated. Like, I didn't lose a game in high school until I got to that game against Henniger my junior year. That very first game, and I didn't start that game. We lost that one 7-0 on a block punt in the end zone with 10 guys on the field. And they were the ninth ranked team in the country at the end of that season.
Yes, they were. Yeah, they were pretty nasty then. Yeah.
Wow. Talk about a team with some studs on it. I mean, you go back to some of those squads. You got the Dorsey Levens, EJ Dowdell, Nottingham teams. You got those Henniger teams with Pookie and those guys, and it just, man, there were some ballers in Syracuse, and it's absolutely amazing to me that only one or two of them actually ended up at SU.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, because guys from city schools very rarely will get recruited. I mean, Will Allen was probably and honestly, he had looks everywhere else.
Yeah.
So it was like the fact that he ended up at SU makes everybody like, this is the only guy. But all the talent that is left, this area, it's wild.
I played football in a lot of different places around the country, a lot of different guys, and I look back on the players that we had in high school and kids I grew up with, and those kids were every bit, and even guys that we played in Semi-Pro, they were every bit as talented as guys that I played with at the college level, and even some guys I played with, at the pro level. Talent is talent. I don't care if you're in Florida, Texas, California, New York, New Hampshire, wherever it is. Talent is talent. And there's a lot of talent in the Central New York area that is not recruited or not appreciated or not recognized the way that it should be.
Yep. Absolutely.
Why do you think that is, Chris?
A part of it is the media in Syracuse, and I've had this kind of grudge against the Syracuse, the Post Standard since high school, when I was left off the all upstate team. Right. So they picked some schmo from APW as the all upstate first team quarterback. And it was Neil Kerr, I think was the sports writer at the time.
Yep.
They have their heads so far up Syracuse's ass and don't, they'll never say anything bad about Syracuse. They'll try not to anyways.
Mm-hmm.
They do not spotlight kids in Syracuse. Nobody knew where I went to college, right? Nobody knew where I went to college. I guarantee you there's not one article in any Syracuse paper about anything that I did in college, right? When you go to other cities, when you go to other towns, especially smaller towns, and Syracuse is a small town.
Yeah.
Kids that go elsewhere to play, whatever sport it is, their exploits get highlighted in their hometown newspapers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It does not happen in Syracuse. And to me, I think is a travesty. And, it kind of, it doesn't endear people once they leave Syracuse to the town and make them want to come back.
I think once they got to, I know for me, 94, 95, My junior year, they did an article on me and the other guys because we were basically next to SU. We were like the next biggest offensive line in the city.
Yeah.
In the so we'd had an article done. But yeah, I mean, and we're lucky enough that 96 team that I played on at Corcoran, we had 6 guys go Division I.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
So they couldn't ignore that.
There was when the regime change happened at Corcoran, and a lot of it was due to Leo having all the connections from Cordell getting recruited.
Yep, absolutely.
That once and that, just like anything else, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know, and it's not that Will Johnson, Will and Allen, Omari, and Cordell were any better than the guys that we had. They're phenomenal athletes, but the fact that they had all these D1 eyes on them,
right,
brought offers. You can't tell me that Big Rock wasn't a Division I offensive tackle or defensive tackle.
Big kid too. I mean, was he? He was like what, 6'6"?
He's 6'4", 6'5", 265 pounds, and just absolutely shredded. Just a big freaking human being. He could definitely play D tackle or D end at the Division I level. There's and believe me, I love Cosgrove. He hooked you. He did everything he possibly could. He did exactly what he was supposed to do and get every single guy that could go play in college a scholarship. And I'll always love him for that.
Yeah, I think my sophomore year, he brought us down to Rutgers.
Yep.
And I remember getting in his – this is a true story – getting in his Saturn, right? So you're talking Cordell. So Cordell goes with us, and Cordell played in the NFL and all that. Kenny, if you don't know. And then so there's 3 of us in the back seat. All of us are 6 foot. Me and Hub probably were 300 plus at that point.
Yep.
And the other kid was our tight end. He was 6'5", and he was probably 280. So imagine we're squished in this. And instead of him renting a car, he drives his own.
Yeah.
Squished in
Down
this
East Coast of
Saturn.
New Jersey.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Like
that's 6 hours easy. 5 hours.
Oh, and you didn't have earpieces and phones and music and this and that. You had what was ever on, and then you were all bullshitting the whole time in the car.
Saturn
I can
didn't
only
stand a
imagine what
chance.
that car smelled like when everybody got out.
Oh, it's so bad.
Suspension
it was
shot.
So bad.
Oh boy.
He said that too, and he's like, "I'm gonna have to get a new car." I'm like, "That's your own fault. You should have rented something. That's your fault, man."
Right.
So, Brez, take us into the recruiting process. How you end up at New Hampshire, man?
So I expected more offers than I received. I had 2 offers. One was at UConn, and the other one was at New Hampshire. There was a lot of we sent tapes out to everybody. My dream school was University of Miami. I want to go to Miami. I want to play for Jimmy Johnson. I want to be the next Testaverde, the next this guy, that guy.
Swag. You got to get that swag, brother.
I wanted the swag, and I love their offense. I love the fact that they threw the ball. They were flashy. There was an offense I wanted to play in. I knew I wasn't playing at SU because I couldn't run the option for shit. So I knew that was never, they liked me, whatever, but I was not going to go there.
Yeah.
UConn offered, New Hampshire offered. I go to UConn first. And I'm not sure if you guys have ever been to Storrs, Connecticut, but it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's about a half an hour or so outside of Hartford, Connecticut, which is kind of in the middle of nowhere. Gorgeous school, nice school. It went in February maybe or something like that. So, weather wasn't great. Facilities were awesome. They have the Gamble Pavilion, which obviously, the men's and women's basketball teams really kind of funnel a lot of money into that school. Stadium was decent. Weight room was decent. I think it was Mark Didio, who played at Henniger, was an All-American wide receiver for UConn at the time. So I got to hang out with him a little bit. Had a good time there. It was typical recruiting trip. They show you around the campus, and then you go to your host, and you go to parties, and you go to eat and stuff like that. But there was something about the place I just didn't feel. It was no warm and fuzzies. It was about 2 weeks later.
UConn then wasn't really known for football at that point yet anyway.
No, they're in the Yankee Conference. They had tied with New Hampshire for the Yankee Conference championship. They were a decent team, but that team was probably the better one that they'd had in quite a while. So it wasn't like they weren't a program. They were, they played football. They were decent. They were middle of the pack in the Yankee Conference all the time. So, there was possibility there if they can get some more players. I go to New Hampshire a couple weeks later. It's in New Hampshire. kind of in the middle of nowhere. I flew into Boston, got picked up. It's an hour and 20 minutes north of Boston. Get on campus. Basically, the entire town of Durham is the University of New Hampshire. It's about 12,500 students at the time, and there's about 10,000 people that live in town. So the whole town is the college, but it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous area. The seacoast of New Hampshire is amazing. You know, it's a really cool place, typical quintessential New England college. Go through the facilities are just terrible. You know, the weight room is the size of the Corcoran weight room back when I was there. I mean, it's just
small,
tiny,
small, maybe
tiny,
a 15 by 15 room.
Yeah, they got these Nautilus machines that came straight out of pumping iron. You know, that left the Gold's Gym in 1975 and ended up at New Hampshire.
Yeah, buddy.
You know, but they hadn't had a losing season in 20 plus years.
Nice.
So there was something about this place automatically that I was like, you know, these guys are blue collar, they're hard workers, they're winners. The coach is no frills. You know, he was one of these guys that, you know, if he wasn't yelling at you, he didn't like you. He'd already given up on you if he wasn't yelling at you. So that was a big draw there, right? I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to be taken to the next level. The cincher of it, like we go to a party. My host was a fraternity brother. We go to a frat party. And I'm there hanging out, dancing, all this other stuff. And at some point, somebody comes over and starts messing with me. And being from south side of Syracuse, I'm not going to take it. So we get into a little bit, and there are football players behind me that have my back. They don't know me. I'm just a recruit. For all I know, I could have been messing with, somebody's good friend, but these guys had my back. So I'm like, you know what, that means something to me. I committed on my way to the airport the next day.
You were sold at that point.
I was sold because there was something more there. There's something, there was an unspoken bond and drive that these guys had that brought them together. Facilities are terrible. The stadium was at that point was one of the worst in the Yankee Conference. The locker room was pretty bad. They call it the dungeon. So I mean, it was not. There was no frills whatsoever. It's just football and winning, and there was something that really brought me, that attracted me to that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any of those kind of places now anywhere in the country. You know what I mean? Every place has, 3-4 uniform options. They all have, that even the smallest, crappiest schools are, set up like, mini D1s now. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, New Hampshire is a real program now. When Coach McDonald got there in '99, he took over from Coach Bowes. Coach Mack was the OC, took over as head coach. Chip Kelly became the OC at that point, '99. They go on this tear of 16 straight, playoff appearances and all this stuff, and they become a real program. They brand new stadium, the locker room's fantastic. I mean, that transformed that program. They've got a contract with Nike there. Funny story. The very first game I started in college, I didn't take a snap for 3 years. We played Connecticut my redshirt junior year, and I wore these Nike cleats, these Nike Air cleats, nice and light, comfortable as hell. I rushed for like 90 yards in that game. We ended up losing. We got a kickoff. We got a field goal off in the last second that they said was no good because time expired. That went through carried off the upright and went through. They waved it off, or else we would have won the game.
Oh, Jesus!
I wore those cleats. I was like, these freaking things are awesome. Well, we had signed a contract with Reebok. Reebok's cleats were shit at the time.
Heavy as hell.
Yeah, that the Reebok rep was at our game, and went to the program and said, "You guys had like 30 guys out there with non-Reebok cleats. We're going to pull your contract if these guys aren't in our Reebok cleats."
That's funny.
The next game was at home against Rhode Island, and I tried to get away. I wore my Reeboks in warm-ups, and then tried to spat at my my Nikes. And Coach Mack was like, "You go in the locker room, you get those fucking Nike cleats off. You put your Reeboks on right now." And just totally it just got me so off my game. You know, we ended up losing like 13-7, which wasn't great.
Oh my God, dude! But you know what though? That's the reality of it. I mean,
Yeah.
Reebok back in the day, those cleats were not good. I mean, I remember I had a pair. I had in high school, my first pair of cleats I had was the pump, the Reebok pump cleats.
They
I
weigh
had
about
those.
3 pounds each.
Oh my God, they were so heavy. Then again, I'm not very fast anyway. We all know that. So
You're not.
But oh God, no, I'm not. We know that. Still not fast to this day.
Nobody's mistaking Jamie for Usain Bolt. That's for sure.
No, nope. That is absolutely 100% fact. But yeah, it's crazy, man. So you get your years in at New Hampshire, and then
So you were a 2-year starter, Chris, right? You were a redshirt junior, started starter, that season,
20,
and then you
22
started
games.
senior.
Yeah, we were 0-3 to start out my redshirt junior year, and then we went 6-2 the rest of that year, and then the next year we went 8-3. So over my last 17 games or 19 games was 14-5. 14.
Yeah, you start to develop. You get in a rhythm.
It's a good run.
Yeah. You know, it was one of those things too. I can remember going through that season, getting those snaps was, after I left New Hampshire, I saw Donovan McNabb downtown, and he was still at Syracuse at the time. And I'd known him from being up at SU a little bit and whatever. So I went over to him and we were chatting. I said, "Listen," and it was at that point, it was a debate of whether he was going to come out or stay at school for his last year. And I said, "Donovan, I can tell you, you need you cannot replace those snaps that you're going to get in college.
Yeah.
Every time you take the ball from center, you're going to learn something. And these, 1,200 plays this year or whatever it is that you're going to get in, every one of those is going to make you a better quarterback. You have nothing to lose by staying here and everything to gain." I don't think that was the deciding factor of him staying at Syracuse, but, I truly believe that, especially from this position, you have to have that experience in those reps, see the defenses, make the checks, and it's invaluable.
So you would recommend just about anybody at that position to stay, unless it's like a surefire, no doubt. What about like Trevor Lawrence next year? I mean, he played his first game and they said that dude's NFL ready. His first college game as a true freshman, right? So what would you say to
that's
Trevor?
Ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous to say guys NFL ready, even after one full season of playing the position. He's not NFL ready. Physically, he might be. Mentally, he's going to be pretty good. You can see it. Here's a progression. It wasn't like he went through 13 games or 14 games and stopped and didn't get any better. He's gotten better as a quarterback. But your maturity, you grow as a leader. And now think about how much more they can do with him now that foundation is there.
Yep.
A
lot.
And as long as he applies himself, they're going to be that much better. He's going to be that much better.
Wasn't it Peyton
that
actually stayed an extra year? Wasn't Peyton the one that was on the fence and he said, "No, I'm staying"?
Right. Yep. Peyton was there for 4 years. He was one of those first guys that was like, because he was a great prospect, but there are a lot of people that said, he's too stiff. His feet are too jittery in the pocket. His motion isn't great. He can't get out of his own way. He had a lot of naysayers coming out of college. And I, being freshly out of college and out of the NFL at that point, it was him and Ryan Leaf. And I was like, I think Ryan Leaf actually might be a better player than Peyton Manning. Obviously, I was completely wrong in that.
Right.
Well, at the time,
everybody was. You weren't alone on that one, Brez. You weren't alone.
Yeah, the Chargers were really wrong.
Quarterback. Yeah. I mean, he was definitely the better quarterback, though. I mean, if you look at what they did in college, he took nobody knew who the hell Washington State was, and all of a sudden, there's somebody. You know what I mean?
And you got this big stud out there slinging the rock all around the yard and, with an attitude and everything else. And Peyton was this guy, wasn't cocky. You look at these two guys on paper and on film and you say, there might be a little more upside with this guy over here versus, this Manning guy.
Peyton was kind of like, he almost took the approach of his coach, Phil, was it Vollmer, right? Like they were like that. They were no frill guys. They just kind of were monotone. You know what I mean? There was no excitement ever on the sideline with any, you know what I mean?
Yep.
They just played ball, you know?
Yep. And I think his father was like that too. I mean, you can't deny the pedigree is there, you know.
Yeah.
And there was that can't remember if it was ESPN Plus or somebody had a whole expose on the Mannings, right? And how they were raised, and you know, the pedigree has a lot to do with it. It's like coach's son, right? There's like this ingrained thing that's like get driven into them just by osmosis of being around it all the time, that puts you a little bit ahead of your peers that don't get that exposure.
Especially that position, right? I
mean,
dad played, dad coached, you know, so they definitely,
Yep.
not only did they have, obviously they had to have the DNA, but they also had the mentality because they were, you know, the day they were born, he's preaching to them, right? So
when I played semi-pro, the philosophy that I tried to take to the field and with my offense was based on Peyton Manning, especially in his Indy days. You know, Jamie, you might remember this. You know, I wanted to go Indy. You know, that told us we were going to the line. I'm calling stuff at the line. You know, and it's difficult to do a semi-pro because not everybody's in practice.
He called that though, Kenny, and we'll get to it, but he never did it. Like we barely ever did that in a game, and we would have ran through everybody at that point because we were ready for it, and we were actually in shape for it too. You know what I mean?
We would have had, and here's the thing about offensive football: you need 11 guys all knowing what the hell they're doing. You know, when you're playing semi-pro and you're practicing for 2 hours 1 day a week, and you have 6 offensive starters there, you can't do that. You can't.
No, you're right.
You can't do any higher level math. You got to keep it 1 + 1 = 2.
Right.
You know, and that was it. You know, in Henke can attest to this. And Kenny, you were there for a little bit. You were there with the Vipers when I was battling with Fiacchi all the time to call my own plays.
I remember that.
And I had an idea how the offense should have been run. He had an idea, and we freaking butted heads a lot.
Right.
We had the same, you know, Johnson and I had a little bit of the same, you know, process, but I called the majority of my own plays.
Yep.
What I did was mine, and I put some of these higher level, maybe not, you know, not calculus, but I put a little algebra in there for these guys. You know, I said, okay, here's the route concept, and you do what I tell you to do. And I'm going to call a play, and I want you to be covered. Like, I'm calling this play, and I want you to do this so you are covered. And the reason why is because you being covered makes this guy open.
It's funny you say that because I started when I started coaching, I did a lot of research, and I was actually looking into New England's playbook, and you can download their playbooks, older playbooks. So I downloaded one of theirs, and a lot of my passing game came off of their concepts. But like you were saying, it's when you tell a receiver, run this exact route and you're going to be covered, it pisses them off.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, absolutely. I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand. Yep. You need to run it exactly that way because this guy, there's only 2 things this guy can do. If he's coached, he's going to do exactly what we want him to do. If he's just a wildfire, he's not. So
it's called an object receiver read, right? So if I tell you to go up 5 yards and turn around and just stay there, that linebacker on you, if you're in a slot, that linebacker has 2 things to do. He can either drop off and you're open, I'm going to hit you right away, or he's going to suction onto you. And what happens is it opens up a void behind him. And that's where I'm throwing the ball. That's one of my favorite route combinations was stop and then a read behind it.
Yep.
So you open up that hook curl zone to those reads by occupying those linebackers covering the slots. And then your only option as that 5-yard stop is to sit 1,000, 1,002, and then drift out to make the window wider. You know,
and that was. I mean, I want to say we that was the pass play for 90% of the entire time we played. You know, we went to the national title. But,
well, that and Stevie Scott, right? Stevie Scott go deep because I remember coaching against you, Chris, and I think it was the first play of the game. You guys sent Stevie Scott on a 9. And I was like, all you had to do, this is going to be a long day. Oh, my God.
Listen,
if you watch his –
play to your strengths.
Yeah, right. If you watch his kid play at Indiana, let me tell you, Stevie – and I loved Stevie Jr. Stevie Jr. is great, but his dad was just ridiculous. You know what I mean?
His dad was one of those otherworldly athletes. I mean, I can remember watching him work out, and the dude didn't – he was like – Dion was the same way. Dion did not touch a weight in high school. And if he did, it was only to show off.
Yep.
You know, guys would be in there, throw 225 on there, big Norms, you know, throwing 225 around there, whatever. And Dion will roll in the weight room, man, get on there, no warm up, boom, 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 just knock out 225 like it was a freaking piece of paper he's throwing around.
Yeah.
Stevie was the same way. I mean, this dude,
complete freak.
it just blows my mind.
I remember the first day I practiced with him. First day I practiced with him. I didn't know you guys yet, and so I hop on the field and he starts talking, and he talks really fast. He talks as fast as he runs. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'd played previously with Marty Clanton. So Marty played translator for me. He basically said, dude, he told you to hook his guy. He's running a reverse. He'll be gone. And I'm just like, I'm like, okay, we can do that.
That's all I do.
That kid was a freak. So one thing we need to do real quick, Chris, we got about 5 minutes left.
Yep.
Number one, we'd love to have you back when you got time, because we can't handle everything you've done in your football career in 40 minutes. So just real quick, you went to the Patriots. You were in camp for how long? Weren't you like one of the last guys cut?
Yeah, it was the second to last cuts. I was there for 2 preseason games. The Super Bowl repeat game up in Green Bay, which is probably the highlight of me being with the Patriots, was walking out of the tunnel at Lambeau Field for the first preseason game, and there's 75,000 people there. Nice. Just that atmosphere, you know, basically the cradle of football, was absolutely amazing. On the other side of the field is Reggie White, Brett Favre, Dorsey Levens, you know, that whole squad that they had over there that just, you know, kicked the crap out of New England in the Super Bowl. You know, that was an amazing otherworldly experience. Funny about the next day in the Boston Globe, front page of the sports section, is a picture prior to the game, and it's Drew, myself, Dave Wollabaugh, who's a center, Todd Rucci, who's a guard, Tony Gator played wide receiver, and there is me on the end of the bench. And as they're going through naming the players, my name was Rich Bresnahan. So I've got that, you know, in like you know, it's kind of framed a little bit, and it's Rich Bresnahan.
Rich, Chris,
that was your moment of fame, buddy.
It's all the same.
That was your 5 minutes, pal.
Well, I was 4 string. I didn't deserve to have my name, you know, called out right in that.
So you went from your stay in New England, and then next meetings we'll get into you know, a little more of your arena career, because I know you spent some time down in Florida. But so just kind of walk us from you get let go by New England, you get picked up in arena, right? And then you, so go ahead and tell us that little transaction.
So I was cut by the Patriots, and I did have a tryout with the Jacksonville Jaguars, who coincidentally were the team that I thought I was going to be signed by or drafted by after the draft. I got signed by New England as soon as the draft ended. Basically, I got the call, "Hey, New England wants you." They call priority free agent. Prior to that, though, Jacksonville had called and said, "Hey, we got 2 picks left. We may pick you with one of those. If not, we want you as a free agent." I was like, "Okay, great. I'm going to Jacksonville." That doesn't happen. My agent calls me and says, "New England stepped up. They're offering you this prior to free agent." I was like, "Okay, great. I'm going to New England." That was the year Mark Brunell blew his knee out in the preseason. Oh. Rob Johnson tears his ankle up in like the 2nd game of the year. The 3rd game of the year, they have a rookie, you know, free agent quarterback starting for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And his name wasn't Chris Bresnahan.
It was not Chris Bresnahan.
Damn it.
So they fly me down there after all this happens for a workout, and I'd gotten back to Syracuse, which was not probably the best place to go. I should have gone to New Hampshire and worked out there. But I ended up, you know, went back down, did not have a great workout. Regardless of that, the night I get there, they had signed Jim Miller, who had just been cut by the Steelers at the time, to come in and be their quarterback.
Shit.
You know, obviously Jim Miller, NFL radio, Jim and Pat.
Yep.
Moving the chains.
Yep. So listen, we got to wrap this up, Chris. You know, it's great having you here. Just one thing, I'm gonna say this. I know we only played a season together, but of all the players I've played with, I think you left the biggest impression on me as far as how to take that level of football, because you've been around, right? So at least I respected where you came from, and then you and I have kept in conversation since then. Whether it was I bumped into you at the BMW dealership while you were working there, or whether it's And when it comes to respecting football, if I want an opinion, I reach out to Chris on his Facebook, and I'll say, "What do you think, Chris?" And so
be happy you didn't play for him for more than 1 year.
He would hate. I would hate him. I would hate him instead of respect him. No, that's so I just.
No, you wouldn't hate. I mean, listen, we went at it so many times in the sideline, but it's only because we both are into the game.
Yep.
And obviously I'm a lineman. Let's run. Chris is going to drop back and throw. And at the end of the day, we won. We won a shit ton of games together.
A lot of games.
Absolutely.
And we always had the number one offense, regardless of what team I was on. We were always number one offense. It was. I wanted to throw the ball 60% of the time and run it 40% of the time. Jamie thinks we threw it 70% of the time and ran it 30.
Oh, easy.
We're actually 50-50. If I go
still
back
to this day, it was 70-30.
50-50.
It was 70-30. Still to this day.
That's hilarious. That doesn't change. He bitched at me a lot on the sideline about the same thing. So
but see, I was good when we played though, Kenny. I played guard, so I was good in a kick slide.
That's right.
Playing center is a little different ball game when you're you have to snap the ball 1,000 times because, freaking Christ.
Right.
That's why I was like, can we just go shotgun, please? And I'll just snap you the ball.
I was happy with that.
Yeah, I know.
Awesome. Well, hate to wrap this up, Chris. Love chatting with you. So we're gonna call it a day, but again, we're gonna have you back. You and I will talk offline, and we'll expand more on your arena career, and then we'll share some more war stories about Syracuse days on the Semi-Pro. And we appreciate you being here, and have a great weekend, and we look forward to chatting with you again.
Thanks, guys. You guys too.
Bye, buddy. Be good.
Appreciate it.
Bye, brother.
See ya.